Look at the balance sheets of the modern world. You will find a mathematical impossibility. The United States owes over $38 trillion. Europe has 14 trillion in debt. Even export titans like Japan and Germany are drowning in obligations. The total global debt has already passed $300 trillion, nearly 3 times the size of the entire world economy. This leads to a chilling, yet necessary question. If every nation on Earth is deeply in debt, if everyone is borrowing, who exactly is lending the money? Welcome to the Macro Historian. Today, we step into the darkest corridors of global finance. We are uncovering the ultimate architecture of power. To understand this paradox, you must first discard everything you know about personal finance. When a citizen takes a loan, they are expected to repay the principal. But governments operate in an entirely different reality. Sovereign debt is not a burden to be eliminated. It is a financial product to be continuously rolled over. The truth is hidden in plain sight. The world does not owe this money to an alien banking empire. It owes it to itself. But ourselves is a dangerously deceptive word, because while the debt is national, the creditors are highly exclusive. The ultimate holders of these obligations are pension funds, massive insurance conglomerates, and the central banks themselves. And centuries ago, empires expanded their dominion by conquering territories and extracting physical gold. Today, that physical brutality has been replaced by financial elegance. Modern empires issue sovereign bonds, mathematical promises of future taxation. The battlefield is no longer covered in mud and steel. It is built on balance sheets. Consider the American system. When the public hears that the US is indebted to foreign adversaries, it is only a fraction of the truth. The vast majority of American debt is held domestically. The Treasury prints the bonds. Massive financial institutions absorb them. And the Federal Reserve often buys them back, conjuring new dollars out of thin air. It is a closed, perfectly engineered loop of trust, a planetary game of musical chairs. Just know that the only rule preventing a massive collapse is that the music must never stop. As long as investors believe a government will pay the interest, the actual principle becomes irrelevant. The machine constantly runs on its own. But the most uncomfortable truth of this entire architecture: interest payments do not flow equally. They are a one-way street, constantly transferring wealth upward, from the wages of everyday workers paying taxes, directly into the vaults of the institutions holding the bonds. Sovereign debt is not just a mechanism of state funding. It is the greatest wealth transfer engine ever constructed. To trace the origins of this massive engine, we must look back to the late 17th century. In 1694, England was exhausted by relentless wars with France, and the crown was rapidly running out of physical gold. In a moment of desperation, the king turned to a syndicate of wealthy merchants in exchange for a permanent stream of interest payments. These merchants agreed to finance the war machine. To manage this revolutionary arrangement, the Bank of England was born. The state gained the supernatural ability to spend money it did not yet possess, and the modern government bond was unleashed upon the world. Soon, rival nations realized the terrifying power of this mechanism. France copied it, the Dutch refined it, and the newly independent United States used it to conquer a continent. A national debt was no longer viewed as a mark of financial failure. It became the ultimate measure of geopolitical credibility. Fast forward to the present day, and this mechanism has mutated into a planetary web of cross-collateralization. Japan lends to the United States through treasuries. The US lends to Europe through global funds. And developing nations park their foreign reserves right back into Western bonds. Every promise is secured by another promise. Above this web is an omnipotent layer: the financial markets themselves. Sovereign wealth funds and hedge funds manage tens of trillions in assets. They act as the supreme judges of the global order. Democracy may decide who sits in the government, but the bond markets decide if that government survives. And the ultimate market makers, the high priests of this entire religion, are the central banks. They do not simply manage debt, they manufacture it. Every single time a central bank purchases a government bond, new currency is born. There is no such thing as debt-free money in the modern era. Every coin in your pocket, every digital dollar in your account, has an invisible IOU engraved upon it. This infinite loop sustains itself entirely on psychological confidence. But what happens when that collective hallucination wavers? We saw the grim reality in Greece. When the debt became mathematically unpayable and bondholders panicked, the rescue came not with mercy, but with brutal austerity. Pensions were slashed, taxes skyrocketed, and mass unemployment ravaged a generation. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned their sovereign debt into a national curse. When the financial system breaks down, the anonymous creditors suddenly step out of the shadows, holding entire nations by the throat. And yet, after every collapse, the machine simply resets. New loans replace old ones, debts are restructured, and the cycle begins anew. Why? Because in the 21st century, paying off the national debt is the absolute worst-case scenario for the global elite. Governments do not plan to pay it back. Not now, not ever. If the United States magically decided to pay down every single dollar of its $38 trillion debt, it would trigger an apocalyptic financial collapse, and US Treasuries are the ultimate safe haven asset, the bedrock collateral that secures the entire global banking system. Without them, the foundation of modern finance ceases to exist. Paying off the debt would violently shrink the global dollar supply, triggering catastrophic deflation and freezing international trade overnight. The world economy behaves like a shark. It must keep swimming forward in this ocean of debt, or it suffocates. The system requires governments to continuously issue more bonds. This means that when politicians stand at podiums promising to balance the budget, they are selling an illusion. The objective is never to eliminate the debt. The goal is simply to keep it serviceable. Debt has become the artificial heartbeat of capitalism itself, pulsing through every mortgage and pension fund on earth. As long as the trust holds, the numbers on the screen can stretch into infinity. But this trust creates a brutal side effect. The relentless expansion of sovereign debt directly mirrors the explosion of global inequality. The system is perfectly designed to reward those who own the debt and slowly crush those who merely service it. The creditors are not cartoon villains, and the debtors are not mere victims. They are simply two opposing pistons in the same financial engine. From everyday households to global superpowers, everyone is locked in this intricate dance. But every engine has a mechanical limit. The real danger lurking on the horizon is what happens when the engine runs out of fuel, when the sheer volume of interest payments mathematically outpaces the productive capacity of the human race. That is when the abstract question of who is the creditor becomes violently personal. For decades, the line between debtor and creditor has been intentionally blurred, transforming financial bondage into a delicate balance. But if that balance ever tips, the grand illusion ends, and the world will be forced to remember what debt truly is. A promise that cannot be kept forever. The past is never truly gone. It simply changes currencies. If you want to understand the hidden forces shaping our future, subscribe to the Macro Historian. We do not just read history, we decode the mechanics of global power. Until the next chapter,